Got it.
Coming in. Good morning. No.
We got it.
Oh, yeah, he got it, sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
And they brought lunch.
Okay, you're on, you're live.
We're live?
Yeah.
All right. Travis, turn around. Wave it. All right. Hello, Brenda.
Allie.
All right. Cool. Well, man, this is awesome. I'm excited. I pretty much know everybody in the crowd, so this is all of a sudden I'm feeling very nervous. So we'll see how many friends I keep after this. No, I'm just kidding. Awesome. Well, man, so interesting day. Interesting start to the day. For those that are joining us online, thank you for tuning in, and glad we're all here and we made it through the January 8th tornado outbreak of 2026 so far. So, yeah, so with that, Happy New Year. Welcome in, right? It's going to starting off with a bang, yeah. So, today we're going to talk about, okay, we got so my name, before we go too far, let me reset here. Before we go too far, my name is Jason. For those that don't know me, Jason Hall, and I manage the fitness center at the hospital. We're called the Wellness Connection up there, and we're located on the 9th floor. Okay. And despite what a lot of people think, we're actually open to the public, just like any other gym in town. So community members can come in. We do also have a cardiac and pulmonary rehab unit on our floor as well. And we offer group exercise classes, different training programs, typically medically monitored training program along with personal training as well. So we're just like anywhere else. So if you're interested in checking us out, I would encourage you to do that. We'll talk maybe more about that towards the end of the presentation today. But first, we're going to talk about, today's presentation is on systems, right? So first of all, I want to say Happy New Year to everybody. And then I was going to let you know a little bit about me. So myself, I'm originally from Kansas, Manhattan, Kansas, so go Cats, not the Jayhawks. Boo. No, we don't like those guys. And grew up there, went to college and all that, finished out up there, got my degree in kinesiology at K-State. And then kind of stuck around town for a while, and then I came down here because my grandparents lived here. So that's kind of what got me into Bartlesville, Oklahoma. And then from there, started working at the hospital, met my lovely wife. She has three daughters. We have 3 daughters. One's at OSU, so that's okay. I'm neutral there. And then we have twins that are seniors this year, so they're starting their last spring semester of high school. And one of them is going to go to OU. Now, I'm not quite so neutral there because back when OU first was kind of coming around to being really good again, they took all of K-State's coaches. So still a little salty with that. All right? It was a long time ago, but the wounds take a long time to heal, okay? So we got one going to OU, and then one she's going to go somewhere. We just haven't figured out where. So we're excited for her. She's got a lot of opportunity out there. So excited for all of them, and so that's a little bit about me. Now, as you can hopefully know, I mean, doing what I do, exercise is kind of my thing. I love it and enjoy it. And so my New Year's resolution this year didn't really entail anything to do with exercise, because I pretty well have that built into my daily routine, right, as part of my system of living, okay? So my New Year's resolution was really built more around my spiritual faith and kind of growing there, personal growth, right? So anybody along with me trying to read the Bible in a year for like the 10th time? Has anybody ever actually completed their Bible in a year? Like said it, like that's what I'm going to do, and they actually did it? Awesome, excellent. So that's one of my goals, right? And then I decided, because, you know, I was just talking about this with somebody yesterday, one of my clients at the gym. I was like, babe, you know, all these successful people that I listen to, and kind of, I'm more of a listener, right? So like when I'm working out, I'm listening to like these little video blogs and things like that. So I was like listening, and they're always like, the most successful people read. They read all the time. They read. And I'm like, I don't read. So that's a problem, right? So in my brain, I'm thinking if I want to get a little more successful and maybe more knowledgeable, obtain more wisdom, probably be a good thing if I tried to read. Okay? Now I don't really have a problem with reading. I can read. My problem is once I start reading, I get about 2 pages in, and then my eyes close, and next thing I know, it's 2 hours later, and I'm like, what's happening? Right? So I've got to figure out a way to read one book a quarter without falling asleep. Okay? But that is my goal, right? To read a little bit more, so I put it at 1 book per quarter of this year. Okay? And then another financial goal that I've got is I want to try to get into savings. Like I said, I've got 3 girls that are about to go off to college and or already in college. We've got some things we got to take care of financially, so need to start putting away a little bit more money. So I'm going to try to save about $100 a month just from my own pocket, right? Like not counting what I actually make, but just kind of on some side stuff. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do there, right? So those are my 3 kind of resolutions. Okay? Does anybody else have a resolution that they would like to share with us? And this goes online, so feel free to type it in there if you want. Anybody?
Lose weight, go to the gym.
Lose weight, go to the gym.
Same old
Okay.
thing. Exercise.
Oh, did you hear that little last part?
Exercise when I get to the gym.
Well, there was that, but what about that?
I don't know. What else I
You
say?
said something like
Same old thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with a little
Yeah.
right? Like been there, done that, tried it, didn't really work out. So,
Make more money to invest.
ooh, I like it. He probably reads a lot. Yeah. So he said, this gentleman out there, he said, make more money through his investments, right? Excellent. Okay. So, have we had resolutions in the past that maybe didn't work out? Anybody? Raise your hand. Yeah. Or just set, maybe it wasn't a New Year's resolution. Maybe we just set some goals at some time and didn't really pan out, right? So we can all kind of relate to that stuff, okay? Where we set it, we're hyped up for it, we're going to go for it, and then next thing you know, it's next year or a couple of years, and we haven't really worked on that. All these things that I've been doing, that I listed, same situation, right? I'm going to try it again, okay? Now, for me, like I said, personally, exercise has always just been a part of my routine, my habit, my system. So that's not an area where I'm trying to grow. But these other spaces, it's a challenge, okay? It is a challenge, right? And we're not even talking about nutrition, right? I almost didn't even want to bring that up at all because there's so much out there that we could get into about goals related, involving nutrition, right, in our diets. All right, so before we go too far though, since we are going to talk specifically, I'm not saying we can't get into some of these other avenues at some point, but right now we're kind of specifically talking about exercise. So I just want to do a quick hit on exercise in general, right? So a lot of our New Year's resolutions involve something along the lines of exercising more or maybe losing weight, which is going to involve exercising more, right? Getting healthier, that kind of stuff. And so wanted to just quickly touch on what do we want to do with that, right? So there's basically 2 types of exercise, or primary types, right? We've got our aerobic, our cardiovascular, as you might hear it. That's our heart and our lungs. So that's like your walking, your running, swimming, biking, things like that, okay? Anything that kind of gets our heart rate elevated above resting rate. And then we also have strength training, okay? Or resistance training, right? And again, that can be broken down into different elements, all right? But in general, we're talking about using some sort of outside force to strengthen our muscles, get our muscles working, okay? And so how does this kind of play in, right? So there's a principle, it's called the FIT principle. I kind of look at it more as like a matrix because really it's going to help us set our system for our exercise program, right? And so what I like to do is actually look at intensity first, right? So if I have a client coming in, we sit down, we talk about what you've been doing, where you want to go, this kind of thing, what's your goals, all that stuff. Well, then I'm going to first off kind of wonder, okay, well, let's do a little testing and see how hard can we work, right? What can we do right now, right? So we look at intensity level. So how hard are we going to exercise, right? Or how hard do we want our exercise program to be? right? So there's generally three kind of types: low, moderate, and high, right? Not too long ago, all the rage was high intensity exercise, right? Definitely not a bad thing. It's a great type of style of workout, exercise program. However, it's pretty intense, right? So it's maybe not the best place for somebody that's maybe not exercised to come in, okay? And then, once we kind of pinpoint that, we're going to look at frequency, okay? So how often are we going to exercise, okay? Some of us might be retired, maybe we can exercise every day, right? Me, I work, so I may have to trim that down to 3 days a week, right? So we all have to kind of look at our schedule, see what we're willing to commit to. And this guy mentioned something before we kind of got on, where it's like, what are we willing to commit to, right? So yeah, we might want to, it might sound grand to exercise every day, but what can we actually do? What's our commitment level? What's realistic, right? We'll talk a little bit about that as we move on. So there's more frequent days, so the more we show up to the gym or get out and exercise, typically we can kind of lower the intensity level of that because we're doing more time, so more volume there with our frequency, so we can kind of lower the intensity down a little bit. And then vice versa, right? So if it's less days per week, then we're probably looking at maybe more time, right? More intense, right? And then we go on to time. So how much time do I have on that day to do my exercise? Okay? Some days I might have a little bit more, so we plan for that. Maybe other days I have a little bit less time. So we got to kind of look at that and figure out the duration of exercise time that we can commit to. And again, so more time usually equals less intense, and then less time typically going to lean more towards more intense. Again, this kind of goes back up to what are we able to commit to frequency, and what's our starting out point, and then where are we going, right? And then lastly, we look at type, okay? So again, kind of seeing above, when we talked about the cardiovascular and the strength training. So what's our goal? What are we trying to work on? Are we working on our muscles? Are we working on our inside with our heart muscle and our lungs and things like that? Are we trying to run a 5K, or are we trying to bodybuild, right? Because those are going to be two different strategies there, okay? So it depends. This is a great point where your individuality can kind of shine through, right? So what do you like, right? If I'm maybe back in high school I was a trackster, so I like to get outside and run or walk or jog, right? Me personally, just from a personal example, I like doing obstacle courses like Ninja Warrior. That's kind of fun, right? It's a fun workout for me. I know that sounds crazy, but it's fun, right? So I make up these little outside workouts. I do it at the hospital. So if you ever see a weird guy climbing a retaining wall at the hospital, don't worry about it. Yeah. With that, right? We want to see, what do we enjoy? What are we good at? What's our body going to allow us to do, right? So maybe we have a bum knee, so we might have to be cautious about doing certain activities versus others. So again, this is where we can really kind of start pinpointing down what is our workout program going to actually look like, okay? And so what I'd like to do from here is kind of put it into action for a moment. And typically I spend a lot of time up here just kind of talking. And so today what I'd like to do, what I was hoping with this presentation, is be a little more interactive. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples here, and I'm going to let you guys kind of figure out, maybe not these two, they're a little more seasoned. Becky knows what she's talking about. Okay? So we're going to figure out what maybe is a good starting point. What are some ideas for these two? Okay? So the first person we've got is Mr. Alex. Okay? Now, Mr. Alex, let's give you a little background here, okay? So he has never exercised before. He works at a sedentary job, right? He works at an office desk, and his outside life is pretty sedentary as well. So never exercised, doesn't really do a whole lot of activity or recreational things like that, okay? Has a BMI of about 27, so it's a little bit on the overweight side. And then what happened was, it was the beginning of the year, went in to get his health check, right? Trying to lower his insurance costs down from his employment, and they said, hey, you need to exercise. right? The blood pressure's a little high, a little slightly elevated, okay? So we want to get ahead of that, okay? He's got no joint issues except maybe a knee that kind of hurts a little bit from time to time, but in general, it's not too bad. And then primarily wants to do aerobic exercise to start. So again, he's kind of that walking type. He enjoys walking, right? So he wants to get outside, okay? So in looking at our frequency, intensity, time, and type, what do we think would be a good starting point for this gentleman? Low, okay.
Low intensity.
Why low?
Because he sits all the time.
Okay. Yeah. So Miss Brenda there said low intensity, and I think that would be a good starting point because not only does he have a sedentary job, but he didn't mention that his knee hurts. But if he's not real active, we don't know if it might start hurting because he starts being more active, right? So maybe we want to keep that intensity down and not have him doing box jumps on the first day. Yeah, yeah. So a nice outside or maybe treadmill walk or even riding some of the seated exercise equipment at kind of a low pace, just to test things out on that knee too, right? But definitely get him just a foundation built. Exactly. How often should we maybe do this? Frequency.
3 times a week.
Tom's out there showing me 3 fingers. Excellent. At least I hope I saw 3. Yep. So yeah, I think 3 days would be a good option. You know, not necessarily saying he couldn't come up an extra day, but again, we want to kind of ease into it. So 3 is a good starting point. And then what about how long while he's there?
15 minutes to start out.
15, 20? Okay, yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. Yeah, 15 to 20 minutes. Does anybody know what the minimum number of weekly minutes of aerobic exercise we should get? You can answer. 150. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so about 150 minutes per week of aerobic exercise at a kind of moderate intensity level, low to moderate intensity level. So if he's doing 3 days, right? Yeah, we might start at 45 or 15 minutes per session or maybe 20 minutes. So that gives us a good starting point. And then over the next week or 2, we're going to start bumping that up depending on how his body reacts, right? Because we also, one thing we didn't think about for a moment is, what about that blood pressure, right? It's slightly elevated already. What happens if we start exercising? Does it go up? Does it come down? Where are we at, right? So we want to keep that in mind as well. Awesome. All right. And then we kind of talked about the type of exercise. So he wants to primarily start with aerobic exercise. So this would be a great option for, and this is something more for you guys as potential maybe clients, right? Or somebody that maybe goes to the gym and starts up. If you like something, don't let your trainer tell you otherwise, right? So if you like walking the track or walking the treadmill, don't let me come over and be like, all right, we're not going to do that ever. We're gonna do strength training the whole time, right? Like, no, you like that? Let's do it, right? You enjoy it, let's do it, right? So we want to do things that we enjoy. Why do we want to do things that we enjoy, or at least can tolerate? We're more likely to sustain that, to stay with it. Yep, good. Excellent. All right, let's move on real quickly to Bailey. Now, don't let the image fool you, okay? Bailey is retired. All right? She's exercised before, right? So she's looking good for her age, okay? So keep that in mind. All right, but she is retired. But she did, like I said, her work at a gym. She'd go every lunch period, right? She's doing her thing. She likes some of the classes, okay? But she retired, so she wants, now her goals have kind of shifted a little bit. And when she retired, she kind of got caught up with, hey, I got all this free time, I can do this, this, and this, and then stop exercising so much, right? So now she's wanting to get back into that routine, okay? But we also have now grandkids that we're kind of thinking about. We've got travel time, right, that she wants to go take some trips, okay? Some vacations that she's worked hard to get to. Right? But like I said, she really enjoys those classes and doing some strength training, right? She likes to feel strong. And so recently she's also developed some slight back pain, okay? Nothing too bad. However, the doc, again, says, you might want to strengthen your core muscles a little bit. Okay? So, with her, what's our intensity level going to be? Yeah, maybe start low to moderate, right? Maybe a little taps into a little bit more challenging than what we would do with Mr. Bailey, right? Or, I mean, Mr. Alex. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I like that. So low to moderate. We can test it out a little bit, see what she's capable of, right? She didn't lose everything in a few months, right? Okay. What about frequency? She's retired. She got time. Yeah. She has exercise experience, right? She used to do classes and went every day on her own. So she's kind of used to doing a little more frequent exercise. So I think a 3, 4, 5 day, depending on what her schedule would be like, I think that would be a reasonable place to start. And then with her, the timing might be a little bit different than, again, Mr. Alex, right? We might start a little bit lower, but we could do maybe a little combination of some aerobic training and some strength training, make it a little bit longer duration session, right? Or if she's like, hey, once I do this, I'm doing it 5 days. I'm going to be here every morning, right? So it's like, okay, well, let's do, 30 minutes of strength training, and then we'll hit a little 10 minutes of core work or something like that, right? So we can kind of focus on what she's needing to work on, okay? And then that leads us into the type, right? So again, she likes those weights, so we're going to hit some of that. We're going to do some core specific exercises, okay, to help her with her issue that she talked about. Awesome. All right, so you guys can see, hopefully that gives you a little insight into where you're at and where you can go, right? And these always can fluctuate, okay? Like I said, before I kind of was introduced to my family, I would work out whenever I wanted to. Used to not be a morning person. I didn't really care for mornings that much, okay? But then, all of a sudden, I have a family. And once the kids wake up, it's all about them, right? And so, it's like, oh, if I'm going to work out, I'm going to have to do it before they even see the sunshine, okay? So, that's when I became a morning person, so I can get my workouts in. So, all that stuff can fluctuate depending on our circumstances and situations, but at least we kind of know what we're looking for. Okay? And all this plays a part into developing our system for achieving our goals. Okay? So we're going to move forward into behavior change, habits, and systems, right? So we have habits, all right? And these are just basically routine behaviors that are repeated regularly. Okay? One friend back there, but routine behaviors that are repeated regularly. Okay? So, kind of see some characteristics that those habits have, those routine behaviors. They're typically pretty automatic. There might be a trigger or a cue involved. They're context dependent. And what's cool or interesting about habits is that they can be good or bad, right? Interesting. So, let's, before we go to the loop, let's talk about ourselves for a moment, right? Does anybody have a habit that they would like to share?
Wake up extremely early.
Okay. How did this habit develop?
Old age.
Old age. So she wakes up early because she got older. Was it related to work at all?
No, because now it's even earlier.
Okay, so she gets done working and she started working out or getting up a little bit earlier. Okay, interesting. All right. Anybody else? Anybody have? It doesn't have to be a bad habit.
You have to get up and get a coffee.
Okay, that's pretty standard, right?
Yeah.
And what makes it a habit? Automatic, right? I mean, you wake up, you don't even think about it. You're just at the coffee pot, right? Yeah. So your wake up is your trigger, right? She probably takes a nap, goes straight to the coffee pot. Don't even know how she got there, right? Like, what are you doing? 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm thinking about it. Yeah. So oftentimes those habits like that can be very almost just we're not even thinking about it, we just do it, right? And, I mean, I'll give you a good example of, I drive the church van, right? On Sundays to help pick up people and bring them to church. Well, that's all fine and dandy, except for church is on Sunday, okay? Now, the gym's closed on Sunday, but yet I will find myself traveling to work on a Sunday morning. And then my rider that goes along with me is like, where are you going? I'm like, well, I guess I was going to work. Right? So, automatic, I'm just doing what I know to do 5, 6 days out of the week, going to the gym, right? So, good examples there. So, sometimes we can get caught in this loop, right? So, the loop is the cue, the trigger, okay? Then it's the routine, right? So our action, right? Physical, mental, or maybe an emotional action that we take, but there's something that happens there. And then we get the reward of it, right? Or the feeling or benefit that reinforces the routine, right? She probably loves that cup of coffee, right? So it gives her a good feeling, and she's like, all right, I'm ready for the day. So that's her reward. So that just reinforces, hey, I'm going to do that again tomorrow, right? It felt good. All right. So now let's move forward to systems. So habits are kind of those smaller components where they're the smaller part of the bigger system, right? So systems are a set of interacting or interrelated elements, parts, or components, and this is kind of the key, that work together as a whole to achieve a specific specific purpose, right? So it's all these little things working together for a bigger purpose. Huh? All right. And so some of the characteristics of a system include things like interdependence. So the performance of one part, right, is affected by other parts. Huh? And as we're going through this, start thinking about some of your habits, some of those daily routine things that we do, and how that impacts something else throughout your day, or maybe something you don't do, right? They also have boundaries. So this helps to define what's inside the system versus the environment. So again, I kind of look at this as, is there definitions? Is there kind of is our system strong enough to withhold a change in situation or environment, right? So again, if I'm such a morning exercise person, am I going to do that whenever I go on vacation, right? Or maybe I'm not, maybe something happens in the house and I've got to stay at my grandma's for a couple of days. Am I still going to do what I normally do, right? So it's got those boundaries there. And it's not necessarily about the system itself. Well, the system is so well put together that it doesn't matter where it's at. And then there's always a purpose or a function, right? So all systems have a purpose, an end goal, right? Structure, how components are arranged and linked, right? And this could be very important, right? Because if we think about it in terms of maybe like exercise, okay? There's a reason we do a warm-up period before we just jump into the main workout, right? And that has a lot to do with developing that structure of our workout plan, because we don't want to overload the body just before it has a chance to even kind of get going, right? We want to let it know, hey, so we wouldn't want to do that part before we did the warm-up. Just wouldn't make sense, right? So that's kind of what I look at in that term. And then they usually have, obviously there's an environment. So, but this can play a big part into, because it's talking about the surroundings that have an influence on the system, right? So, yeah, maybe you have a big life change, and maybe you may move houses, or, for some of us back in, like I said, for me, it was a big environment change of adding 3 kids to my life all of a sudden, right? So, had to make adjustments to that. Okay, so that certainly influenced my system, and so now I have to change my system. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Sorry, I forgot. Let's go back. So, we're going to talk about an example of a system, right? So we kind of dove into that a little bit, but let's look at specifically a workout plan. And we kind of touched on that, but when we talk about, when I'm putting together a workout, what do you guys think would be number one on figuring out what we're going to do for our workout? Let's say, you know, I want to do a strength training routine, right? I'm trying to build up some muscle. So what's the first thing I'm going to do for my workout? Warm up. Okay. What does that mean? There you go. Yeah. No, I love that reaction because it's like, yeah, it's a great idea. I know the word, but then when it comes to actually putting it into place, it's like, what do I do? Right? Yeah. So let's say it's leg day. What do I want to do? Maybe do some bending of the knees, right, and the hips, and maybe some kicks or something, or some walking lunges. Yeah. Maybe do a light walk, right? Because that's all stuff that's going to involve warming up those joints and muscles of the lower body. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Good. Then what? Then what are we going to do after the warm-up? Rest. We got some comedians out here. Yeah. So what we would probably do, right, is do the workout, right? Now, are we going to start off with like super hard stuff, or are we going to ease into it? Maybe ease into the first exercise or two, right? Again, carry on that warm-up a little bit, so to speak. And then we'll get into the primary chunk of the workout, right? And then what's another thing we might do towards the end of the workout? Yeah, maybe cool down, kind of reset the body, yeah, do some stretching, things like that. Yeah. So again, that's a real simplified version of a system of workout plan, but it works and it's helpful, right? And what you guys kind of highlighted for me is a very important part in any kind of goal that we're going to do, which is we got to have some knowledge and we got to have some skills, right? Especially if we're kind of going on our own, right? I mean, most of the time we might have this exercise goal. And I love Miss Cheryl because she's over here. She's like, hey, I need to talk to you after class because I need some knowledge. I need some insight into what I need to do to work on my exercise goal. And it's like, yeah, we need to find that information so we're more prepared to actually put our system together and then implement the system. Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to talk about just putting it all together in terms of the system itself, right? So we're gonna, what I think is important to do first is to get that goal, right? So we're gonna build our system, okay? So we're gonna start with a goal, okay? Now goals are kind of interesting because we can have kind of generalized big goals, or we can break them down a little bit more. So we have what we call an outcome goal, okay? An outcome goal is basically what's the final result? What does that look like? Okay? So let's say our final outcome goal is I want to lose weight, maybe 20 pounds, right? So I'm going to say I want to lose 20 pounds. That's my end result. That's the final goal. Okay? So that's what an outcome goal looks like. Then we have things called performance goals. Okay? This is a little bit more similar to maybe you may have heard the word or the acronym SMART goal, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, achievable, right? I always mess up the R. So like realistic, yeah. And then time bound, yeah, thank you. And so with that, right, it's a little more specified, right? It's just broken down a little bit. So I want to lose 20 pounds by June, right? Because in July I'm going on a trip and I want to look good, right? And I want to be able to move better and walk more. So we've got 20 pounds by June, and I'm going to do that by going to the gym 3 days a week or 4 days a week, right? So that's kind of more of that SMART type goal or performance-based goal. Then we have, lastly, our process goals, right? So this is taking that SMART goal, breaking it down even further, okay? So if we said I'm going to lose 20 pounds by the end of June, going to the gym 4 days, okay? So now it's like, okay, that sounds great. I like it. What are we going to do on those 4 days? So there's our process goals. How are we going to make that happen, right? So I'm going to work out in the mornings, okay? So to do that, I've got to set my alarm, right? Gotta have my alarm set, ready to go for those 4 days, okay? Maybe have my gym clothes ready to go. I need to cancel all my doctor's appointments that are in the morning so that way I can go to the gym in the morning, right? And they'll be okay with you canceling those because you're going to the gym, okay? Alright? So that's kind of an example of that process goal. It's just breaking it down into those actual habits and specific actions that we're taking. Okay? And then I kind of take this little chart a little further. Okay? So we're talking about goals. Well, then we want to take that whole process, that whole system that we started to develop, and we want to kind of refine it a little bit, right? Oh, excuse me, moved ahead too far. Commit, right? So first, he was talking about it again. Okay, what are we willing to commit to? So we've done that SMART goal. Now we just got to stay committed to it. We got to make sure we're doing the actual actions, taking those steps. And then we want to take a look at and refine. So maybe we're struggling with a couple of those steps, right? And that's okay. We're going to struggle with some of those. We're talking about behavior change. We're talking about lifestyle change. It's not going to just be easy, right? Some of these, I'll put bad habits or just things that have prevented us from doing things that we wanted to do. That's going to be hard to adjust and change. So it's going to be hard for us to get out of that and into a new routine, build a new system. And so we might need to refine it. So it's always important to assess and kind of make adjustments. Okay? Like I said, what I learned was it was really hard for me to wake up early in the morning and get a workout in, especially when I first started doing that. Right? I had to set 5 alarms. I started with 1, then I went to 2, then I went to 3, then I went to 4, 5. Finally, I had to put my phone away, so I had to actually move to turn it off. Yes, sir.
I know a guy in college, and he put one under his bed and put one in the adjoining room, one in the bathroom.
Yeah.
He tried to do it for an 8 o'clock class.
Yep. Hey, amen, man. I know. Yeah. Like and that's what's crazy about it is it seems like, man, I should just be able to hit that alarm and get up and get after it, but we don't. Oftentimes we don't, right? And so even for me, I'm like, I really want to go work out in the morning, but by God, I have to set 5 alarms and I have to put it over here. I mean, and then let's not even get started on if it's super cold outside. And I don't like cold, so like, I'm not real motivated to do that. So, you know, it takes a system and you got to be disciplined with it and committed to it for sure. And again, like I said, refine, adjust, make those changes. I love that. 3 alarms in 3 different parts of the house. Do it, man, whatever it takes. Have an alarm at your coffee pot. And then we're just going to repeat, right? So whether we hit the goal or maybe we don't flag get to that 20 pounds at the end of 6 months, doesn't mean we've just failed and we should never keep working at it and stop right there. No, we're just going to adjust that goal, repeat, right? Start at the top, okay? I hit a 5-pound weight loss, still something to celebrate, right? Now, what did we learn from the first round? And let's do it again. So this time we are wiser, we're more knowledgeable, right? We know what we can do to make it even more successful moving forward. All right. Oh, I want to go back for a moment. So, it's 12:40. I don't want to take too long here, but does anybody just have one quick, I mean, it could be maybe a water thing or an exercise thing. Does anybody have one example of a goal that we could build your system right here, right now? Balance. Okay. Hey, I love it. I love it. So, Miss Stephanie right there, she said, I want to improve my balance, right? So there's our outcome goals, right? That's the number 1. Okay, so how can we break that down to a performance goal or SMART goal? What do you think? He's like, all I know is I can't ride a bucket bronco. Yes, sir.
I have a little different retrospective on things that most people on here have done lived a little longer. And one of the things I've found is that the very simplest exercise you your balance is a big problem.
Mhm.
And getting up and down out of chairs and all this stuff. And, another thing was, one of the worst things, or one of the hardest things to do is yoga.
Okay.
You have no physical resistance there except your body, and you're
Yeah.
contorting all over the place.
Yeah.
So that makes it very, very difficult. And of course, what you're talking about is something intermediate for those extreme exercises.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the word contorting to describe yoga. That's about right. That's about right. Yes. Yeah. Awesome. Excellent. Thank you for chiming in on that. Appreciate that. Yeah. Yoga is a good balanced training, movement, and exercise program. So Miss Stephanie here said she was struggling to figure out like the specifics of that, right? The SMART part of it. So let's go to the process first. Okay. So we're gonna come back to that SMART goal. So let's skip down. If we want to improve our balance, specifically maybe on the BOSU ball, okay, what are some actions that you could take to improve on that? I know, and you guys can help her. Don't feel like you gotta put it all on her own. We're a team.
Have something like a bike or something beside you to grab hold of as you're about to fall, so that you don't completely go off. And you just keep strengthening a little stronger that way.
Okay. Okay.
One thing I know.
Okay. Very specific. I like it, but maybe that's where we're struggling a little bit. We're getting real down to the nitty gritty of like, we're right there, we're on the ball. What are just frequency, intensity, time pattern? What can we do? Okay, so we want to spend more time on the ball. That's always a good starting spot. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Have the round
Amen.
side down.
Man. He wants to throw you off of that ball, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's take it. Let's go. We're gonna go a couple exercises off the ball, right? Maybe some single leg holds, or maybe some leg swings, lifts, stuff like that, right? And then we're gonna keep working on that, but we're also gonna spend maybe a couple exercises of marching in place on the ball. But we've got an apparatus next to us in case we need to grab on, right? Safety first, okay? So there we go, right? So we're gonna do specifically on the ball, off the ball, 3 to 4 exercises each time I go to the gym, right? We're gonna spend maybe 5 to 10 minutes working on that, okay? And then we're gonna do some core strengthening maybe, right? Might work on that. Some leg strength, core strength, that always helps with balance, right? So we know that, so we're gonna incorporate that in there. And then, we're gonna do that for a month and get back on the ball and see how it feels, right? Just balancing on there. So, boom, just like that, we know exactly what actions we're gonna take. Now we just gotta do them, right? So, thank you for being brave and putting that out there. Appreciate that. And with that, I'm not going to go into our Alex and Bailey examples. I think we got a good example right there of how we can kind of develop that system. And so, just a note on that, right? She was struggling with that SMART goal, performance goal segment. So what do? We just went ahead and went down to the process. Well, what does it look like if I'm going to improve this, right? I have my outcome goal. What do I need to do that, right? And that helped us develop a little bit more of a performance goal, okay? Because we went ahead and went down to the habits and actions, okay? The process. So with that, I'll just kind of open it up to any questions out there. It can be related to exercise, it can be related to K-State, football, whatever. Anybody have any questions, comments? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say that as you get older, you have a lot of your hips and things don't have a lot of movement.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, you're very rigid in your stride.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you need to do, that's what physical therapy is about, because you're working all that, and your eyesight legs and your knees and your ankles.
Mhm.
Not so much your upper body.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I always, I'm glad you brought that up. He was talking about just, you know, if I'm wanting to work on improving my balance or my gait, you know, with walking and things like that. But it's interesting because I'll talk to people that maybe come to the gym, maybe they're kind of new, and they have those goals, but then I look over and all I see them doing is upper body exercises, right? Well then, if they're basing their outcome, their success of having better balance on only doing upper body exercise, are they going to be successful? No. And then they're going to go what? They're going to blame us. They're going to be like, well, the gym sucks. I need to get better at the, you know, balancing. And it's like, well, we weren't doing the proper things to improve that. So definitely very important to know, and that's why breaking it down, right? Having that outcome goal is great, but really we want to break it down because that's going to help you determine what you actually need to be doing. Okay? And it works for everything. It's not just exercise, it's, you know, nutritional habits, sleep habits, you know. I have a client that I work with and we, you know, we're working on getting him to bed a little bit earlier and kind of winding him down, and no, I'm not talking about myself. But, you know, it's like shutting the brain down. So we got to come up with some systems to help him get into that more calm down mode to be able to get to sleep a little bit earlier. So, so it can work for a lot of things. Okay? All right. Well, there's no, excuse me, no other questions, and we'll call that a Thursday. All right. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate it.